All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with the final part. This is the final part to Debbie Duncan's interview that she did with the Telegraph. All right, cool. So if you haven't seen part 1, 2, 3, and 4, then make sure you go and check it out to give yourself context before we get into part 5. I have to say at this point, it seems like Debbie is in denial. And the reason I say that is because she claims that she's had all of her questions answered. Doesn't make any sense to me because there's a multitude of red flags that haven't been answered. These red flags point to something else happening to Jay.
Must have been difficult going back to Tennessee.
It was, and then obviously going to the court, sitting in front of the officials, and language barrier that was horrible as well. You know, to get translators, and then they handed us this document, and it was like 600 pages of this investigation. And it was like, wow, you know, we've gone from July to November without knowing, you know, what they'd actually done, and they had been very thorough.
And you had a lot of your questions answered in
we had a lot of
document.
we had a lot.
So they went throughout a whole 3 to 4 month period without knowing what the authorities had even done. It makes no sense to me that Debbie and Warren were left in the dark in regards to the investigation. And now I can understand to a degree why they were puzzled online, looking at all of these different conspiracies, potentially going down all of these rabbit holes, until they get their hands on this 600-page document. Now, what you have to question at this point is the logical things that should have been done by the family from day one. That includes sitting down with the friends and understanding what truly happens the night leading up to Jay going off with these two strangers. Two strangers, there we are again. Why on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 19, does Debbie and Warren still think that these guys are two strangers? In an interview that she did with the Mail Online, in the first few days of her being there, she said that Jay just got in, maybe, with some strangers. Why does Debbie believe that? Why does Debbie think that after several days of being there? How does Debbie not know that Abe and Rocky, Lucy and Brandon are all good friends? In fact, we've got Abe sending that voice note on day 1. The person says she received the voice note from Abe a day or 2 days after Jay had been missing. We now need to listen to what Abe says in that voice note to understand how the story's changed now. But Abe always claimed in that voice note that he knew these guys way before Jay even got there. He confirms it, not over a period of days, no. He knew Jay's friends, referring to Brandon and Lucy, as people that he knew for ages, for a long time, not someone that he met over a few days. Again, we have to listen to that audio where Abe is trying to make it all sound normal. And I think that's probably the best time Abe's ever been able to deliver his story, his side of what actually happened, with clarity, without stuttering, without sounding like he's making it up. It's the first actual time, bearing in mind it was fresh on his mind at that time. Hence why the delivery would have been so on point. But surprisingly, thereafter, he wasn't able to deliver it the way he delivered it that first day, and things started to change thereafter. By the time we get to the inquest, the whole story has changed. There was no mention of someone standing up and asking for the key. There's no mention of Jay being left by himself, all of his friends just left him. There's no mention of Jay asking Abe to go to the Airbnb and him offering him the sofa, although his apartment is only a few minutes down the road in car. Although they've got battery and credit to contact Jay's friends if they did split up at that point. But how could they split up based on the information we was fed through at the inquest? How did they split up? All at Magic Mike's around 6 o'clock. How did they split up? How did the friends not see Jay getting into Abe and Rocky's car? How did they not see that? How did they not know where Abe and Rocky was staying if they had spent a number of days with them? Think about it. You've been spending a number of days with these people, but you don't know that they are located in the mountains at a B&B. How do you not know that? You're all on holiday, spending several days together, and at no point it was mentioned that they were staying at the B&B in the mountains. No point whatsoever. Although Abe had multiple reasons as to why he stayed in the mountains on the podcast with Cullen, someone that does a lot of talking, he, over a period of 3 to 4 days or however many days it was, he never told you guys that he was staying in the mountains. None of you guys knew that. Although Brandon is his good mate, Lucy, we know now, is his good mate. He knew them for a long time. In fact, he knows Brandon's brother even better, but none of them knew he was staying in the mountains. None of them knew that, but they're willing to allow Jay to go off with these guys. See, if we go back to Ayub's original story, he mentions someone standing up and asked for the key. You then have to question, how did Ayub know that Brad and Jay were staying together? How does he know that? See, he knows that Brad and Jay are staying together because his mate stood up and asked for the key, and the only person that could be is Brad, but they don't know he's staying in the mountains. You're talking about two people who don't know who Ayub is. They've only met Ayub over the past couple of days, according to Brad, because he's the only one that verifies that. He corroborates that after Ayub mentions it in the first ever audio he releases. But then how can he know that Brad and Jay are staying together? Why does he not think that Jay's staying with Lucy? Why does he not think that Jay's staying with his cousin that lives in Tenerife? Why does he not think that Jay's staying with Brandon? How would Ayub know that information? He wouldn't know that information. You guys are on your own thing, you're doing your own thing, you're linking up here and there whilst you're seeing each other on the strip, but you know, or you overheard a person say to Jay, give me the key because I want to go back to the apartment. You heard that. You can say that. See, Brad hasn't even confirmed that. Brad doesn't mention that. Brandon doesn't mention it. Lucy doesn't mention it. The only person that can mention it is Ayub. Why is Ayub the only person that can mention that? Why is Ayub the only person that can tell us about this fake Rolex story? See, no one else can tell us about this story. You ask Brad about the fake Rolex or ask him about the Rolex story, he can't even tell you what was written on the screen. He can't even quote what was said. He's like, yeah, there was something about a watch, but I didn't think anything of it. And I don't know what was said on the screen. How can you not know what was said on the screen? But Brad knows that these guys never went to any festivals. How does Brad know they went to no festivals? So here we have Ayub scratching Brad's back and Brad scratching Ayub's back because Ayub initially told us that his friend, Brad, clearly stood up and asked for the key. We then had Rachel telling someone on Facebook a similar story, verifying that Brad stood up and asked for the key. And Brad mentions nothing about asking Jay for the key. He just got split up because it was busy. And then he got a call from Jay via Snapchat saying that he's going to stay with a black guy in the mountains. Then you've got Brad confidently saying that these guys never went to any festivals. The only person that's ever mentioned that again is Ayub. They're actually telling us information that they shouldn't be able to tell us. Ayub shouldn't be able to know that Brad and Jay are staying with each other if he doesn't know them. If he knows that they're staying with each other, then they should know where the Airbnb is. They should know that these two guys, these two Somali kids, are staying in the mountains. They should know that, right? There's more questions and red flags that we're going to put on the table in this video, ladies and gentlemen, which Debbie doesn't have the answers for. Although, in a little while, she's going to claim we had to put out the facts. We had to put out the facts. Let's get to it.
Answered.
What did you do, Debbie? Sit down and read it yourselves? Get the lawyers to read? Like, it must have been harrowing.
I couldn't wait to read it, and I was Google Translate, like every page Google Translate, because obviously the coroner took a copy, but it was taking them time, so I thought, I'm just going to do it myself. So every night I'd sit there, Google Translate, read every single page, and then like a week later read it all again, take notes, highlight things,
Okay, I mean that's something that you would think, you would do. A mom or dad, a family member that was looking into something, you would think, yeah, that's something that you would logically do. But then you got asked the question of, well, what happened with Lucy? Why didn't she go to Jay's location? She had Jay's location, right? She got given that in between the hours of 8:30 to 8:50 in the morning. She spoke to Ayub, and Ayub corroborates this by saying that he spoke to Jay's friends at 9 o'clock in the morning saying Jay's lying in the ditch, cut by a cactus, and he feels like he's going to die. Lucy also fed that same information to the Spanish police. We have the documentation. So that's two accounts right there where two people who were in distance of Jay's location, who had Jay's location, knew he was going to die, but instead of going to that location, what they decided to do was file a missing persons report and walk around the local area putting up missing persons posters. And then setting up a GoFundMe for £30,000. Make that make sense, Debbie? They're the answers that we need. That makes no sense whatsoever. And then comes all of the other red flags that are unanswered as well. We'll go through those red flags, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere, but make it make sense, Debbie. You went through 600 pages and you've done it again, but you still don't know the reason as to why they never went to Jay's location and saved him and helped him. rescued him, stopped him from walking another 2.5 hours to his death. You don't want to put no pressure on them and say, hold on, you guys knew my son was going to die. He told you he felt like he was going to die, and you never even went to the location to save him or help him. You went and put up missing persons posters. For what? When you knew where he was. You knew where he was. You had his screenshot. Jay, for Jay to send over his location, it's only one explanation, Debbie. It means Jay was asking for help. So if Jay's asking for help, why didn't they help him? Why would they have a location of where someone's claiming to be lost, not missing, lost, but then not go there to help him? Explain that. It's just common logical sense. It's just logical and common sense, Debbie. But we're not getting any common sense. It makes no sense. This is the reason why we're here, asking questions, standing up for what we feel is right. And that's justice for Jay, getting the real answers for your son. Not to troll you, not to troll your family, not to hurt your family. It's never been that. You signed a deal with a documentary that tried to portray us as that, when the real people that trolled you were sending you abusive messages. We weren't those people. We were fighting for you. I mean, what I've just mentioned there, ladies and gentlemen, is just a little tip, a little toe in the water. If I was to put all of my feet in the water right now, ladies and gentlemen, the splash would be so humongous. Metaphorically speaking, I'm talking about the amount of BS that is in this case that is not being dissected by the people who are meant to be the family, seeking the truth, trying to get the real answers. But then they can't answer why Jay would have made 2 versions of explaining a stolen watch. Why was there 2 versions, Debbie? If we sit there and say, well, the facts are out there, well, you're basically saying you believe your son would have either been involved in some sort of criminal activity where he stole a watch, or he was that delusional he believed he had stolen a watch to the point he had to explain himself twice. He had to make 2 versions of it to tell the world that he had stolen an expensive watch, which no normal person would do. Now, I'm not saying Jay did that, but if you're saying the facts are out there, then you're saying Jay did do that. Whether Ayub comes out and says, oh, I didn't see Jay steal a watch, and I can say that Jay didn't steal a watch, you're still telling me that Jay would have went on his own phone to tell the world that he stole a watch when it never even happened. According to Ayub, from his perspective, it never happened. He doesn't know where Jay got that idea from, why Jay would have told his friends or told people on social media that he just stole a watch. He doesn't know why Jay would have made a second version and changed the word Rolex to AP and then changed it from this Somali kid to 2 Somali kids. He doesn't know that. He's basically saying that Jay was straight up delusional. And Debbie's just saying, okay, well, I agree with that character. My son must have been delusional. You're not standing up and saying, no, I don't think my son would have done that. It makes no sense for my son to have done that. It makes no sense for my son to have seen that there was civilization downhill. It wouldn't have made any sense for my son to get into a car with people he doesn't know, drive to a location in the mountains, consciously driving there wide awake, knowing that there's only one way getting back. There was one way to go, and that was downhill. If Jay would have consciously went there, he would have seen that cars are driving uphill. He drove uphill to get there. So why would I come at the Airbnb, do a left, and continue walking uphill after telling them that I'm leaving to go home? Why would I do that? And I walk for about 30 minutes before I get to a destination where I believe I can see the sea. By the time he gets there, based on the facts of him leaving the Airbnb at 7:47, he probably would have reached that viewpoint around 8:25, 8:20, give or take, around that period of time. It all depends on how fast he was walking. We don't know. We wasn't walking with Jay. And there's no proof that Jay was even walking up that road. Hypothetically, Jay walked up that road, gets to the top of the mountain, and does what exactly? Doesn't rest because he's dehydrated. Long night out with all the guys. Doesn't rest, doesn't chill. Continues walking past the viewpoint, which is a brilliant view, by the way. And at that time in the morning, regardless of it being a Sunday, he would have seen people there. 30-minute walk, chilling at the viewpoint for say 2 to 5 minutes, and you see no one other than the non-independent witness, Ophelia, the Airbnb owner. Bit fishy. There's a hive of activity happening at 8 o'clock in the morning. How did no one see him walking up there? No one. No one. Jay continues to walk down the road for maybe another 5 minutes past the viewpoint until he sees the sea, and he looks at the sea and decides that, you know what, I'm going to go towards the sea. Although all he can see is danger in front of him, He just thinks, look, the sea's right there. I'm going to walk towards the sea. And if that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, Jay saw the sea and said, oh, the sea's just there. It looks deceitfully close. I'm going to head towards the sea. If that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, when outside the Airbnb, when he saw the bus stop, why didn't he just think, oh, the bus stop's just there. I'm just going to wait for the bus. Didn't he think, well, this is the way I come in the car with Ayub and Rocky, so let me go back the way I come because there's only one way. See, what they're trying to do is make the narrative sound logical. It doesn't sound logical. Going to a viewpoint, walking for another 5 minutes to see the sea from a distance, thinking that it's closer than what it actually is. Looking at the terrain, thinking all I can see is mountains, all I can see is rocks. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk through them. I'm going to walk down them. But what doesn't make any sense is as he goes off-road, ladies and gentlemen, he tells his friends he goes off-road. He sends screenshots to his friends claiming that he's lost, because that would be the only reason you would send screenshots. And although that he has sent those screenshots and he's asking for help, he decides to continue walking for 2.5 hours, not back the way he came, no, into the mountains, into the ravine. I'm going to walk into it. I'm injured. I was just lying in a ditch cut by a cactus, according to what I said to Lucy. But no, I'm going to get up from this ditch and I'm going to continue walking into danger. See, this makes no sense, as well as all of the other red flags that are yet to come, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned.
Questions that obviously we had as a family that, you know, we didn't understand, but we did get a lot of answers.
Also, you took part in a Channel 4 documentary where you allowed part of the pathologist's examination of Jay's remains to be filmed, and not in a gruesome or visceral way at all, but just, and I watched that and I thought, did you do that because you wanted full transparency? At that point, you're being put under so much pressure with so many questions about what happened to your lad that you sort of felt, well, I'm just going to open the door to this process, because I thought that was a very brave thing to do. And I wondered whether that was the motivation.
I mean, people are going to see this totally differently. Bearing in mind, Debbie is supposed to be a grieving mum. So why is she being forced into having to reveal an autopsy of her son's death? Bearing in mind, Dr. Richard said that he couldn't rule out Jay being pushed. Fueling it with more fire, ladies and gentlemen. Fueling it with even more fire. So if he can't rule out Jay being pushed, he can't rule out foul play. I mean, just that alone, ladies and gentlemen, would have me as a parent asking multiple questions. Bearing in mind all the context we have for this case already, how does one gain closure over a photo that was produced by Ayub, someone that you didn't trust? He produced it on the last day of the inquest and it was just lapped up. Case closed. When really and truly, if Ayub was really working with the family from the beginning, as his lady friend said he did in that audio that he did with her on the first or second day of Jay going missing, if Ayub was really working with the family, then why hadn't they seen that photo? Even that lady from the podcast has the original audio of Jay and Ayub filming Rocky. Listen to the audio. It's not done outside. It's fully been manipulated. Doesn't sound the same as the audio we were shown on the podcast. It wasn't done outdoors. Whatever audio was put together on the 24 to 48 hours of Jay going missing, which Ayub revealed to that lady in that podcast, that audio sounds extremely fake. It sounds tinny. It sounds too much reverb on it. It doesn't sound like it was outside. There is no outside atmosphere. It's an absolute bug audio. And then you have to think, why would Ayub have that audio, show that audio as evidence on that day? We're talking 2 days after Jay had been missing. Already had the story of our filming my friend as he was sleeping, getting out the car. Very, very important that he added that to the original story, to his first story, that part. Irrelevant. Our filming our friend sleeping as we're getting out the car. He knew that was evidence that they fabricated. That's why he mentioned it in his story, his first ever story. But then you have to ask yourself, if they had the picture of Jay smiling in the back of the car whilst Rocky was sleeping, why did they never reveal that picture? Why did Debbie, Warren, never see that picture on day 1, day 2, week 1, week 2, even before the podcast that Ayub done with Cullen? So I'll understand if that picture was used as evidence and therefore it couldn't be shown publicly on the podcast. So, I'm only authorized to show you, a video with me zooming in and out of Rocky's face. But no, it wasn't used as evidence. Otherwise, it would have been at the initial inquest on day 1, and Debbie would have never needed Ayub there. What are we talking about? So it was never originally evidence, was it? And there's still multiple more red flags that we haven't even covered yet, ladies and gentlemen.
It was really top and bottom, yeah. There were just that many conspiracies about it's not Jay, and obviously his injuries. He got, the video, going back to the video, he was stabbed on a beach, and there were one about him being shot. And I just thought, you know what? as awful as it is for us, we need to do it. We need to get the facts out there. So yeah, it did get the facts out there, but
Yes.
a lot of people still, you know, they don't want to believe the facts.
Well, this is
They
the
don't want to believe the facts. What facts did we get out there? Like, Debbie, we have to be really honest now. Let's just pull this up a little bit. We never got any real facts out there other than a body being found on the mountains and some of the injuries consisting with a fall from height. What red flags were answered by the documentary or by the inquest? Jay's bank account, Debbie. Why did Jay's bank account decline? If Jay was someone that saved, according to you, why did his bank decline? Do we know the answer to that? Why did Jay owe Brandon 200 quid? Do we know the answer to that? See, it's funny how the moment his bank declines and Brandon asks him for 200 quid, his whole night seems to take a dark turn. Everything seems to go downhill from there, Debbie. Everything. Nothing prior to that. Everything's normal. Everyone having fun. No complaints, no worries, no concerns for Jay. But the moment Jay's bank declines and the moment Oji needs his 200 quid, there's a number of problems. Problems that can't be answered. Problems I believe you don't have the answers to at this moment in time. You then have to lean on why there isn't any video, pictures, or voice notes from Jay after 10 past 1, Debbie. See, I know you looked at Jay's phone and you looked at the messages and you looked at the, the call log. But what about the videos, the pictures, voice notes on WhatsApp? Was he not sending voice notes when he was in the mountains? He was just doing video calls. Just video calls. Again, these are things, Debbie, that can't be verified. We can't verify whether they were really on a video call with Jay at that time. We can't verify if they were really on voice calls with Jay at that time. See, Debbie, all of that could be fabricated. All of that could be make-believe. See, Jay made over 70 calls. He made over 70 calls, Debbie, but no videos, no voice notes, no pictures after 10 past 1 on his actual device. His device. And then you have to ask yourself, Debbie, based on the official narrative, if Jay would have never seen it coming, if Jay would have instantly died and not suffered from the head injury, then tell me how he knew he was going to die. Tell us how Jay told two people, Brad, an unsent message, as well as Lucy over the phone, that he was lying in a ditch and felt like he was going to die. He was also cut, Lucy's words, not ours, Lucy's words. And also Ayub supports that story. He backs it up. He was saying that story on day one. So if that's the case, not only why did they not go to the location, but how did Jay know he was going to die? How did he know? Are you telling me because he was walking on a path or walking through a ravine, he just realized at some point that, you know what, I'm not going to make it. In fact, let me just stop, pull out my phone and write the message. Not send it, just save it to the drafts. But via a voice call to Lucy, I'm going to tell her, just before I send her the location of where I'm at, that I feel like I'm going to die because I'm lying in this ditch and I'm cut by a cactus. Bearing in mind, the location that they ended up receiving, Debbie, was on the path. So how far from that path, which is right next to the roads, could have Jay really been? But you don't want to answer any questions. You believe you've put the facts out there. You've got the facts. You know the facts. We had to put the facts out there. And again, this is not me having a go. This is not me being a troll or anything like that. This is me asking you to open your eyes and ask the right questions. Why are you just being a pushover? Because that's basically what this sounds like. There's too many red flags here that point to something else happening to Jay, but it seems like you don't want to know. You don't want to know. You don't want any of those questions answered. You'd rather just brush them under the carpet and act like it was just an accident. And we put the facts out there. Because if you put the facts out there, Debbie, you're basically telling the world that Jay was delusional because he was telling social media that he had stolen a watch, and he made two versions of that. So he had to be delusional. He couldn't have been normal. Not even someone drunk out of their face would do that. I've told the world once that I've just stolen a watch, but what they're going to do is when they get to the Airbnb, they're going to do it again. This time I'm going to change the name and I'm going to add an extra Somali kid. And then I'm going to make over 70 calls to and from people that could have rescued me, to and from people that I sent my location to after telling them I felt like I was going to die. And none of them come to my rescue. They, in fact, allowed me to walk for another 2.5 hours before I fell to my death. You got to think of it like this. Jay would have been still walking through the mountains whilst Lucy was having conversations with Aya about Jay being in a ditch, feeling like he's going to die. He would have also gone onto Facebook and let everybody on Facebook know about Jay being missing whilst Jay is still walking through this ravine before he's even fallen to his death. She's actually connected with Luna Patel before 11 o'clock in the morning and got to the Airbnb by 12 midday to connect with Ayub and Rocky, who tell Lucy, oh no, Jay's gone, he went to go and get some cigarettes. And then what Lucy does is go to another police station and she gives them a different report. She tells them that she actually stayed at the B&B, and when she woke up, Jay was gone. B&B belonged to two friends, people that she knew. Then you want to portray in the media that two mystery men and she knows nothing about them, and Jay met them that night and done the same thing on the GoFundMe, which generated £70,000. Now, I'm not blaming Debbie for the GoFundMe, but you still took the £70,000. You still spent it. You still used it however you wanted to use it without actually knowing the real truth behind what's happened to Jay at the time. The need for a GoFundMe and a Facebook page was irrelevant. It was never needed. It was not needed once. They made it look like it was something that it wasn't. When you knew where Jay was, you knew the people that Jay was with. You were all chilling with each other at 6 o'clock at Magic Mike's, and somehow you can't explain how Jay gets into a car with them. You're all friends, but for some reason you don't know that they're staying at a B&B in the mountains. But they know that Jay and Brad are staying in an apartment together 8 minutes from the nightclub that they met Jay at. But instead of taking Jay to his apartment, which is the most logical thing to do, bearing in mind they've got a car, they would rather take Jay all the way to the mountains, 14 miles away from where he is staying. And you're telling us, no, that's not suspicious. Everything's normal, because they come out and told us at the end, eventually, after a year of lying and being deceitful and doing a lot of covering up, especially on social media, they eventually told us that they all knew each other and everything was good. It's all on Jay. Jay's the one that was delusional. Jay's the one that decided to, leave and not charge his battery. Jay's the one that decided to walk the wrong way for 30 minutes and then go off road because he saw the sea. Rather than doing the normal thing that typical 19-year-olds do, Debbie, and just wait for the bus. Call a cab. Call his friends. Ask them to pick him up. Send him a cab. Bump a cab. Do whatever you got to do to get back to your friends. No. He does everything he can to walk towards a sea through a ravine, and they think it's normal. They said, no, that's all normal. That's something that Jay would do. That's absolutely something that Jay would do. We can believe that. We can believe it. That's what you're telling us. When you say we've put all the facts out there, that is what you're telling us. You're telling us that we can believe that Jay would have taken all those drugs and delusionally told the world that he's up to no good. He would have went the wrong way for 30 minutes, walking into no man's land, and then walked through a ravine for 2.5 hours before he falls to his death because he decided that he wanted to get to the sea. Yeah, that sounds like RJ. That sounds just like RJ. I can't believe it, because that is exactly what you're saying. You're going to paint the picture that Jay goes off with anyone. Yep, he goes off with anyone. He's just irresponsible. He doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, that's RJ. You're doing all of that in protection of who? Lucy. Oh, yeah, she done the right thing. She done the right thing. Brandon. Oh, actually, he didn't even want to turn up to an inquest, but we're not even going to question him.
It's not Jay, and obviously his injuries. He got, the video, going back to the video, he was stabbed on a beach, and there were one about him being shot. And I just thought...
even that mention of stabbed on the beach or something happening on the beach, where has that been debunked? People have tried to contradict what I've said in the past about debunking the beach videos, the beach theory. See, at the time, ladies and gentlemen, we had multiple different beach videos. Not just one, not just two, not just three. There was about 4 or 5 different beach videos where people are claiming that's Jay. This is what's happened. Oh, there's people doing something in the sands. There's people doing this. So look, I went through all of the videos at the time, and I looked at all of those videos and said, you know what? None of these videos are connecting to whatever happened to Jay. None of these videos. There was one video where it does look like there's an altercation with a group of guys, but the guy that people are thinking is Jay doesn't actually look like Jay, in my opinion, and that's the reason why I debunked it. Months and months and months later, we were given another bit of footage taken from the Skyline webcam video footage. That was video footage that I hadn't seen before, whereby you can see 2 people holding someone up, walking with them, and then a person in white with the bag walking beside them. I only saw that video footage several months ago. So when we were debunking all of the beach footage last year, that wasn't a part of the footage that we had debunked. Had never seen it before. And then as time goes on, when you're given more information about the case, you realize that after a certain time, there is no proof of actual Jay being alive, other than what his mobile phone data tells us, which can be manipulated by anyone. You got to do is just have the phone in your pocket and walk a certain way, and it makes it look like Jay was walking that way. Without photographic evidence proving Jay was walking up that road, up that whirly road, that could have been anyone walking with Jay's phone in their pocket.
A lot of people still, they don't want to believe the facts.
Well, this is the other thing. actually a verdict of accidental death
Yeah.
is recorded.
Yeah.
And you discover through the course of those 600 pages, but also the coroner's inquest, that unfortunately he tried to make this journey on foot. He didn't have the right equipment. Yeah. It was rough terrain. And he fell. It was a tragic, tragic accident.
Look, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to think, you know your son. Everything about your son. You know whether your son likes to walk, run, sleeps a lot. Now, what's been said is that Jay doesn't even like walking. Jay complains about walking to the barber's to get his haircut, and his barber's is around the corner. Debbie, in her own words, told us in the Sun exclusive interview that Jay complained to her about how far the apartment was from Papagayo nightclub. 10-minute drive, ladies and gentlemen. But Jay was complaining about the distance. But here we have Debbie saying that Jay would have walked. Jay would have walked for 30 minutes up a road, got to that mountain point, see the sea, and walked for another 2.5 hours through a ravine till he falls to his death.
Walked some of the path that Jay would have walked. You know, we saw drone footage of the path that, you know, I mean, all these people who say he couldn't have done this, he couldn't have done that. Well, he did, and unfortunately, he didn't make it. You know, I mean, when you stand at the top, you can see the sea. Yeah. And unless you're there and you see it for yourself,
yes,
you've absolutely, you know, no idea.
No idea.
So he's done.
Debbie, at the B&B, he can see the bus stop. At the B&B, he can see that there's a number of cars going downhill. If you're trying to say the decisions that Jay made were logical based on the fact that he could see the sea, then how can you go against the real logic of him seeing the bus stop, him having access to his phone, calling a cab, calling his friends? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. With all due respect, you're basically saying that Jay had no common sense. Jay was a stupid boy that was ultimately delusional. Now, I'm not saying that I believe this. Lucy always said that Jay's not a stupid boy, he wouldn't do this. Brad vouched for him and said he's not stupid, he wouldn't do this. But Debbie's actually saying, no, he is stupid. He would do this. And that's not me being rude, that's just me being honest. You know your son better than us. You're basically telling us that your son is a wannabe gangster. Your son is someone that wanted to be something that he wasn't. He wanted the attention. He wanted to tell people that he had stolen a watch. He wanted to roll with people like Abe and Rocky, people that are 10 years older than him. I mean, that's the picture we've been left with. That's the literal picture we've been left with. And it's that picture that's been painted right there, ladies and gentlemen, which is why Debbie has ultimately received abuse. Think about it. She's received abuse for being a poor mother. And that's not me saying she is. That's what she's received the abuse for. And I don't condone it. She does not deserve it. No one has the right to throw anyone abuse online, offline. But I'm talking about the official narrative, ladies and gentlemen. The official narrative that Debbie is telling us to buy into. She's telling us these are the facts. These are the facts, but no one wants to believe the facts. You want us to believe those facts, Debbie? You want us to believe that you was a poor parent? That Jay was running around head gone, reckless, committing crime, hanging out with people that are way older than him, irresponsible, didn't listen to any of his friends, and then decided to go against things that he doesn't even like doing, like walking, as an example, Debbie. He walked 30 minutes, then 2.5 hours through a ravine to fall off a cliff. I mean, those decisions alone, Debbie, tell us that Jay wasn't normal, because nobody would have made those decisions. Nobody. It's the reason why Mark Williams Thomas kindly came to the conclusion that Jay feared for his life. Instead of painting him out to be a delusional character that has no common sense, he would rather say Jay feared for his life, because that's what made sense to Mark Williams Thomas. But these are the facts that make sense to you, Debbie. These are the facts.
And that thing of looking and thinking it's not actually that far.
Yeah, yeah. It's
also, like he hadn't slept much. He'd been up. He'd been drinking.
You got to also think, who's made Debbie believe that narrative? How was someone that she doesn't know convinced her that her son that she does know made those decisions to walk through a ravine because he saw the sea? That's straight mind manipulation at its finest right there, because there's no facts to say Jay did that. You see Jay going off-road on camera, or if you see Jay walking up that road, you'll be more inclined to believe that that is likely to be the case. You know, Jay walked up that road, he went to the edge of the roads, walked on the path, started walking along the path, and he walked towards the mountains. If you had CCTV evidence backing that, then it would be a bit more plausible. But when someone comes along and says, oh, Debbie, you know what, just look right there. I think Jay was looking at that sea, and he said to himself, yeah, that is extremely close That is extremely close. If I make it towards the sea, then it'll be easy for me to get home. It'll be easy for me to get back to Los Cristianos if I make it towards the sea. Although he was standing outside a bus stop, although he had access to credit to call a cab, call his friends, and all of the logical things that normal people do, Debbie decided to believe that her son said to himself, you know what, I see the sea, I'm going to head towards that sea. And I'm going to continue walking through this ravine in shorts and a t-shirt until I get to the sea. Instead of logically saying to yourself at the point, well, if that's the case and Jay did decide to do that, where was he when he fell in that ditch and was on the phone to Lucy? Where was he at that point? Because I need to know where my son is at that point in order for me to find the actual closure in this case. Because if you're telling me my son was lying in a ditch, telling Lucy he felt like he's going to die whilst he had battery on his phone, I just can't get my head around why he got up from that ditch and continued walking for 2.5 hours to fall to his death instead of waiting for his friends or going back the way he came. That's not my Jay. That's not my son. No one's thinking along those lines. And this is the reason why 90% of the people that are invested in this Jay Slater case are puzzled, thinking, what the hell was going on here? This doesn't seem right. This is not making any sense. None of this is making any sense.
Again, I say this, it's all very well moralizing. This is the stuff that teenage boys do.
Yeah.
They can sometimes do stuff that later proves to be lacking in judgment. And most of the
You see how she has to think about that because she's chatting absolute nonsense. Firstly, you're a lady, you're not a boy. You've never been a 19-year-old boy. So how can you say this is what 19-year-old boys do? How can you try and convince a mother that this is what 19-year-old boys do? Manipulating how Debbie is feeling and thinking on the spot without any of it being true. And it's things like this that are absolutely outrageous, ladies and gentlemen, because Debbie doesn't even know she's doing it. Debbie doesn't even know she's being played. She's spinning at things that have no substance, no legs to stand on. She is literally just playing a mind game.
and they get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why your story has resonated with so many people who are on your side and not on the side of these vile trolls.
We're all on Debbie's sides. No one is a troll. What troll are you talking about? We're all on Debbie's side. We're all trying to help her understand that something more's happened. All the people that you're referring to that are mums and dads with children, they're all on our side, which is Debbie's side, but she doesn't even know it because the people have manipulated her to believe that we're on the opposing team. And that's the problem here. Debbie is sitting on this platform with you and you don't even care about her. You don't care about Debbie and care about what truly happened to Jay. You don't care about getting to the bottom of what happened to Jay. You don't care. You're just someone that is trying to force an agenda and you're using Debbie to do it. And it's absolutely disgusting. What you don't understand, Camilla, is the people that have been pretending to be on Debbie's side are the actual real trolls. But you've done no investigative work in order to understand this case. Again, you're just forcing an agenda and you're using Debbie to do it.
Things so worse.
Yeah.
This is every parent's nightmare.
Yeah.
You can understand how this plays out because we
Exactly.
know
It's every parent's nightmare, which is the reason why we are here saying what we're saying to make sure this doesn't happen to another parent. This doesn't happen to another parent's child who goes abroad and mysteriously vanishes, mysteriously ends up at the bottom of a ravine, dead, and no one investigates it. No one seeks justice. No one seeks the truth. This is about ensuring that other people within our community do not receive the same injustice that poor Debbie has received. And although she doesn't even know it, we know it. We know it. The thousands of us that you think are trolls who are actually on Debbie's side, we know it.
what young people are like and they think they're invincible, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You also had that message that Brad, his friend, had received, sort of with Jay admitting that he was in trouble at that point.
Yeah, that was a shock. That was awful. So when we'd been out to Tenerife in the November, got his phone, got the file and everything, we turned his phone on, but we just went like on the call log and we just said, look, we're not going to sit here and go through it all. We'll get back. So we got back, and the day after we went to Zach's. We met at Zach's, and Zach signed into Jay's Snapchat, and obviously Wi-Fi signal. A message sent to Brad. Brad must have had his phone on him at the time. Immediately messaged me, have you got Jay's phone? I said, yeah, we've just signed into his Snapchat. He said, a message has just come through from Jay. And then we looked, and the message said, I'm not gonna make it.
But Debbie, you have to now ask, how did Jay know he wasn't going to make it? How can he be sending that message to someone if he was on the phone call to Lucy when the phone died? The phone died whilst he was on the phone. So how can he be writing a message which then saves to the drafts? How is that possible, Debbie? These are the logical things that you need to think about. Or did someone have Jay's phone and fabricated all of those messages and all of those calls to make it look like Jay was there, to make it look like Jay was pleading for help? Was that message to Brad to make it look like Jay wasn't going to make it because they knew Jay was already dead? Maybe it wasn't sent because it didn't fit the narrative? Because how does someone know they're not going to make it if they instantly die, Debbie? That's what I'm saying. And here we have a mother not asking these questions. She would rather use her energy and sit on podcasts and attack people that are on her side. It's bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
And it would really upset us, you know. But he was lost.
Yeah,
you know,
he was lost.
He was lost. If he was lost, they had his location. Why didn't they go, Debbie? Why didn't they go to his location, Debbie? Why would they make missing persons posters? Why would they make a Facebook page? They had his screenshot location. And in that same call, he said he's lying in a ditch, which means he's not walking. He's not trying to find a way out of wherever he is. He's sitting there. He's cut. He feels like he's going to die. No, we're not going to seek the answers to those questions. We're just going to make it look like it was all on Jay. Yeah, it was all on my son. Yeah, my son done this. My son done this. It's that right there, Debbie, that's making us question everything. The fact that you do not want to get the answers for these questions. Right here, ladies and gentlemen, she says he was lost, he was lost. And then it looks like she zones out. She zones out and just stares into thin air for a good couple of seconds. And then Camilla has to grab her attention again. My opinion, when Debbie's saying he was lost, I think she's actually contemplating it in her head. She doesn't actually believe he was lost. Based on the location of the screenshot, he couldn't have been lost. Warren walked there, Zach walked there. We've even walked there, not physically, but using a drone, using a camera. How can Debbie say he was lost? He got lost, but refused to go back the way he came. He decided to continue walking for 2.5 hours after his phone died, telling Lucy he felt like he was going to die, and he walked off a cliff. And you're just going to say, oh, he was lost, and you know, none of his friends helped him. Yeah, none of his friends decided to go there. What they decided to do was make a Facebook group, file a missing persons report, although they had his location, and put up missing posters later on that afternoon.
He was lost.
Yeah,
you know,
he was lost.
It's like she's trying to convince herself that he was lost. Like literally, it's like she's trying to convince herself that he was lost.
If there was any positive to be had from the coroner's report, is that he didn't actually suffer because he fell and hit his head.
Yeah.
He didn't actually suffer. He didn't know it was coming. So how can he explain to two people he felt like he was going to die? Oh, I don't think I'm going to make it. How can he say that? Why would he send the location of his screenshot? The logic behind that is he's lost. But then why continue walking for 2.5 hours? Why not walk back the way you come, although the screenshot shows you right next to the road? Or is the screenshot a way of them trying to make it look like? Are they trying to make it look a certain way? Come on, man. It's clear as day. Anyway, let's just wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. This is part 5. This is the final part. I think we've done enough, we've said enough to make it make logical sense as to why Debbie should be still fighting for answers, still fighting for justice for her son. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, leave your thoughts and opinions down below. It's not over yet. There are still a few videos in regards to Jay Slater, in regards to some of these trolls that I am going to be dropping. So make sure you guys go nowhere. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if we are newly watching. Turn your notification bells on so you don't miss out on those videos. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.